Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was trucking up the highway, minding my own lane, with some dude in a Prius went and flipped me off. Guess my redneck hit him wrong. Seems like everyone these days is a ticking time bomb full of hate for folks like me who don't agree and ain't ever gonna change. And it gets me thinking, leave this long-haired country.
Hey everybody, this is John Marietta, and I am the Hillbilly. Today's show is being brought to you by Miles' Garage and Tire Center, Mung's Auto Body, PatriotsOnline.com, CALM, Fayette County Recovery, Storage, and U-Haul, Country Motor Sales, Gunslingers in Connersville, JB Market in Dunbar, Thundering Hills Feed and Supply, The Ink Spot, Fayette County MAGA Patriots Group, Solid Foundation Ministries, Tactical Civics, New Life Free Methodist Church, Highline Motorsports. Go see Greg. He always got something out there to make it that you can ride on that goes fast. Gun Owners of America, Hillbilly Jon Radio, John Marietta for We the People, Powerline Speedway, Premier Auto Glass, and I'm going to throw a commercial in for myself. I still got about 30 round bales of hay left. If somebody needs any, please get a hold of me. They can message me on Messenger on Facebook. I got on one of the pages, and I'll pick it up, and we'll make sure you get some hay. Okay, let's get right to it. It's going to be a busy 40 minutes here. You know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's John 8:32. And folks, that's exactly what this program's about. Truth, straight truth, no spin, no smoke, no mirrors, just the facts. Because here in Fayette County, we've had enough of the lies. Now, today's a special show. I got my good friend, Mike Maat, joining me. Yes, the 2024 Libertarian Party Vice President nominee and a fellow member of the Republican Liberty Caucus. And now some of the lie builders out there on social media like to push this fairy tale that Mike and I are at odds. They want you to believe there's a division, drama, some kind of feud. Wrong. Dead wrong. Mike's my friend, and he's here with me today because the truth always outlasts the lies. And we're going to deal with some of those lies today because you've heard them. I've heard them. Some folks right here on this station like to pretend they're Republicans, but they've been removed from the party leadership. Why? Because they wasn't able to handle the money correctly. And that's not Republican. That's betrayal. And yet they get on the air and bash me, bash reform, bash the truth. It's laughable. It's desperate, and we all found you comical. Now let's talk about something that actually matters. Your money. Since 2019, our commissioners have raised your taxes 78.2%. Now that's not a typo, folks. 78.2. And we are just one tax increase away from 100%. And believe me, it's coming. Why? Because they're more worried about spending money on pet projects than investing in the community to bring population back to Fayette County. Do I need to say that again? They're more worried about their own pet projects than investing in the community to bring population back to Fayette County. And with it being September, families are feeling the pinch harder than ever. Kids are back in school. Grocery bills are still high. Energy bills are still high from the damage caused by the Biden inflation policies. We're going to take care of that. Yes, we are. We got the man in the White House that will. And now winter's around the corner. Every penny matters. But here's the deal. While the commissioners are busy reaching deeper into your pockets, I froze my salary. I cut my expenses. And I did something nobody else bothered to do. I put the automation fund right up on the recorder's website for everyone to see. To the lie builders, that still wasn't good enough. You know why? Because they want the power to dox the businesses that I did business with and the county does business with. Now what do my opponents do? They spin. They lie. They say I'm paying my campaign team out of the Recorder's Automation Fund. Flat out false. Just another one of those fibs, one of those webs of lies that weave to manipulate you, the voter. And remember what the Speaker of the House said. It's harder to build a lie than to tell the simple truth. But these folks would rather exhaust themselves stacking lies than facing 1 ounce of honesty. And while we're at it, let's talk about my opponent. Folks, he can't even answer the most basic question. I ask him, what is a woman? When does life begin? If you can't answer those, you're not ready to lead, period. And instead of answering, what does he do? He claims victimhood. He plays the poor me game. And he and his proxies run around whispering lies about me to anyone who will listen. It's pitiful. It's politics at its worst. But here's what they can't stop. People are waking up. Young voters, Kennedy Democrats, the ones abandoned by their party, libertarians, independent folks. They're all coming together and saying, you know what? Jon Marietta is the guy for the people. That's why I've got endorsements not just from Republicans, but from the independents, from Democrats, and from libertarians. You know why? Because the truth crosses party lines. Accountability crosses party lines. Integrity crosses party lines. Meanwhile, what do we get from Vince Facilities? A name you know and trust to raise your taxes 78.2% in 6 years? A name tied to old school backroom politics? Vince, the man who raised your taxes and then takes off to Florida for months every year. That's the legacy. And my opponent, he's just Vince's guy. That's it. Another cog in Vince's machine. And I don't know about you, but Fayette County doesn't need any more Vince's guys hanging around the courthouse helping themselves while you pay the bill. So today, we're going to set the record straight. Mike Termat's with me. So is Gene Humbert. We're going to talk truth. We're going to talk reform. We're going to talk about how this county doesn't need more lies, more taxes, and more old guard politics. It needs leadership rooted in transparency, responsibility, and faith. And how are we going to bring the Liberty Caucus right here into PA? Because at the end of the day, folks, it comes down to what Jesus said. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And Fayette County, it's about to set itself free from the lie builders. I guess I had Gene come down. Gene has a group, and you want to introduce yourself, Gene? I'll let you do that real quickly.
Yeah, I'm Gene Humbert from Markleysburg. I have a Patriot group, and I had it for several years. It's called Mason-Dixon Mountain Patriots, and we are pro-gun, and I don't know how, wasn't there something went on in Harrisburg today about...
Yeah, there was something went on about the guns today. Well, we'll get to that probably maybe a little bit later today or maybe even tomorrow.
Yep, well, go ahead.
Okay, so, Mike, are you with me?
I certainly am, and it's a great pleasure to be with you. I got to say, John, you caught me by surprise. I am completely unaware of anyone who would try to suggest that you and I were at odds with each other over anything. I mean, for all the conversations you and I have had, I don't remember us ever getting into an argument, much less, at odds.
Well, it seems like people try to say that the Republican Liberty Caucus isn't siding with me on things, and we know that to be a falsehood.
I don't think that's true at all. But I got to tell you, I mean, before we tease it out, even if you did find a couple of people who don't see everything perfectly eye to eye, I mean, that's normal, right? Ronald Reagan is the one who said, if we both agree on everything, one of us doesn't need to be here. It's just not, there is nothing important on which we disagree. We support each other. Different groups of Republicans have different sets of priorities. You know, two folks in the same party might prioritize, you know, this is important, you know, that's important. That doesn't mean that people are at odds. I do remember one thing that we disagreed with. I disagreed with a buddy of ours who says to me a couple weeks ago, he says, you know, John Marietta is a good guy. And I said, no, Marietta's awesome, and you're lucky to have him in Fayette County.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. We're working forward, and our county's in such financial disrepair, and it needs to be taken care of. And one of the things that people don't realize about our county, which you helped me do, in a record amount of time, and I know that you have the ability to get to accountants and let's call them number crunchers to be nice. But anyways, our county's about $82 million in debt, and we did, and you helped with the help from Rand Paul and Thomas Massey. We put a debt clock together for Fayette County, and a lot of people scoffed at it. They said that can't be possibly right. Well, I will tell you, it isn't quite correct, because we didn't include all the debt in it because we wanted them to come out and ask us. It's probably more like over $100 million in debt, and people don't want to believe that, but it's true. I mean, every time you take out a loan and take out a loan to pay off the loan, is all you're doing is making the debt increase. It'd be like buying a new car, driving it for a couple of days, and then going back and financing another new car. And that's what we've done here in Fayette County. And we've done it for years and years and years. And now we're we've got so many things going on, and we can't figure out where all the money's at. So I mean, it's like, you know, it's like the Wendy's commercial. Where's the beef? But in Fayette County, we have to ask, where's the money? So
well, and good for you for identifying where's the debt, because so many politicians for so many years have hidden the fact that all of this debt is out there because they don't consolidate it and report it to their constituents all in one report. So nobody really knows how big the problem is in total. And rarely will a politician talk about the fact that you have a huge amount of total debt that's explicit, and then you have another huge blob of debt that's created by laws that oblige the state or the county or a city to make payments in the future, a mandate for the state to make these payments that is unfunded. And these unfunded mandates are another form of a debt, another form of a liability that creates a huge future financial burden on constituents. And good for you for talking about these things, because so rarely do politicians discuss it.
Well, one of the things that that goes on that a lot of people don't realize, that they'll have a project that they're going to do. One of the projects that we're looking into now is they put a roof on the old federal building, and it appears that they've spent a lot of money to put this roof on. It probably needed a roof. There's no doubt about it. But it looks like it was done without a bid. So that, and we're talking millions of dollars. So we're talking over $1 million is what I understand. So we're going to get into that. We're going to look into that. And
that's a real problem. You should not be having something at the county level that's in the millions of dollars that doesn't have a competitive bid process. And if you really only have one roofing contractor in your entire county, I know that's insane and ridiculous. Of course, you have multiple roofing contractors. But if you only had one contractor who could provide the service, then you have to find a way to invite others to submit bids from outside the county. And if you still can't find anyone, then it absolutely needs to be discussed thoroughly at the supervisory level and with a public hearing, so that people understand that, you know, we're between a rock and a hard place. You know, we need this work done. We couldn't get a competitive bid. Here's the situation. What do you all think? This has to be done with extreme transparency.
There's lots of things that's happened that way. There's money missing, and money that's not where it should be. And they want to come at me for something that I did with an automation fund, but I got approval from 3 different entities before I made the calls. Before I said, okay, let's do this. And I actually had my solicitor take care of it. I actually had a vice president, which is now the president of the Recorder of Deeds Association, and I actually had the chief financial officer for the county okay things before I did what I did. And I'm in the clear on all this. They try to tell people that I'm being investigated. The investigation is evidently fell short, or somebody doesn't know. There's nothing there, and they realize it. But anyway,
no, I don't think there is any there. I have been apprised and advised on the situation, and I know that this is something that happened some time ago, that you did handle it with a tremendous amount of transparency, that a lot of voices representing the community were involved. They weighed in on it. It was all handled above board. I think at the end of the day, this is a story to which you point with a great deal of pride, and I think your constituents will agree with me in the long run.
Yep. And a lot of people don't understand this, but Mike is he's a financial guru. I mean, without a doubt. We sit down with Mike and some other people, and there's a way we can work ourselves out of this debt. There is. It's going to take some time, but we're looking at several different options, and we're still working on some things. But it looks like that and people will say, well, it's a 4-year period of time. But if we did the right things over the next 4 years, we'd be able to work ourselves out of about $15 million of this debt. Now, we're not talking about playing poker here with Cheerios for chips. This is real money. This is real money that we're talking about. And $15 million, what happens is the more you reduce the debt, make sure I got this right, Mike, the more you reduce the debt, the less interest you pay towards the remaining debt.
You're exactly right, and it takes time. It takes time. There are a couple of immediate benefits. One, you don't have the payments that are so important in the future, the big principal payments, the interest payments that are required. But there are a couple of other things that you get going. First of all, just, if you can avoid raising taxes and keep more money in the pockets of people who are running family budgets, that's going to be good for their families and for their individual lives. It's also going to be good for your underlying economy. It's going to be good for building a healthy community. The other thing that people don't spend much time talking about is that it also helps the credit worthiness and credit rating of your county, of your organization itself. Nobody likes to lend money to someone who is so leveraged that you're not sure they're going to pay you back. This is a real problem with so many counties around the United States, is that when they go to raise money, typically not from a bank, it's typically through a bond issuance, but when they go and they raise money, they're paying a higher interest rate than what they used to because they're so leveraged already. And, of course, politicians don't want to discuss this with their constituents because it would reflect badly on their judgment and their past behavior. So we need to avoid allowing our counties to get overly leveraged because it costs our constituents double. It's just not right. I view it as an ethical problem, not just a financial one.
Well, I don't believe that any of the county commissioners took a bag of money and went off somewhere with it. But what they've done is I believe that it's been manipulated in a way that it's got worked into the general budget. And it's kind of like, say when you remodel your kitchen, okay, and you realize that it's going to cost you, and a lot of people might scoff at this, but kitchen and a bathroom is the 2 most expensive rooms in a house. So when you go to remodel them, it costs a lot of money. If you get a loan from the bank and you get partway through the project and you decide, well, I'd rather paint the porch and buy myself a new couch, and you don't have the money for the kitchen, you got to go back to the bank maybe to find out to fix the kitchen that you started out with originally, and that's what's happened. That's what's happened over the years. And no matter how much anybody wants to claim, you've been in D.C. how many years now, back and forth in D.C.? How many years now?
I spent years in Washington, including a couple years working for the White House Office of Management and Budget and other government agencies. I've seen a lot of crap.
So I have to ask you this, because you got to be at the White House, you got to walk around it and see. Is there a grant tree out back that magically produces money, or where does that money come from?
Yes,
Grant?
yes, there is. It's in the Rose Garden. It's a big tree and it grows money. That's how this works. Well, if you ask the administrations, up until recently, you might believe that it is how it works. It's just incredible that people working in government have such a horrific understanding of basic financial principles. You'd be surprised about the number of people who think that we can continue to borrow money without limitation.
Well, we can go down that road too. But my goal is like Arkansas. Chinese can't own no property here. So, anyways, and that's what we've done. We've invited these people in. We've taken money off of them, and we haven't paid them back. So now we tolerate the misuse of our property, our farmlands, our businesses. I mean, just one thing in agriculture you can think of is the Chinese are now killing more hogs, or the owner of one of the biggest hog plants that produces makes hogs into pork chops or into pork in the whole world, and it's sitting here in the United States. Now,
yeah, you're absolutely right.
There's something wrong with that. I mean,
well, potentially there is. The big problem, John, is, as you know, I know that you've discussed this on your show in the past, the big problem is that Chinese corporations of any size, to the extent to which they're domiciled in China, which the companies that we're talking about are, they have representatives inside of their companies from the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, they are controlled by the same people that control the government. So what you have in these companies that come to the United States from China is foreign government agents. They don't characterize themselves as such. They probably don't even mean to be. They probably don't even want to be. For all we know, they resent their government intervention as much as we would if the government had someone sitting next to you right now telling you what you could say and what you couldn't say. So, I don't blame these Chinese nationals for the crummy situation, but we cannot have an organization of our agriculture or any other industries in which major parts are dominated by people who are controlled by political actors in Beijing. You can't have it. And again, I don't mean to suggest that people from other countries who come here to invest and help build a life aren't welcome. They are. But I just don't think it's a good idea to allow a foreign government to control these businesses that control our industry.
Well, I was reading somewhere, and we're getting away from the topic that we were going to go on, but I was reading somewhere that now they're trying to locate water sources, and they're trying to buy them also. And I don't know if that, I don't want to be like, I'm not saying that be a conspiracist about it, but if there's one thing you have to have to survive in this world, and that's water. You have to have air and water. And if we don't control the water that's in this country, if we don't make sure that it's pristine, if we don't take care of the water, water has to be one of the major things we take care of. So we don't need to be selling water there. We don't need to let anybody be in control of our water at all.
You're exactly right, and that goes for all of our infrastructure. You would not want, for example, our ability to source energy to be controlled by a foreign actor, by a foreign government, especially an adversarial one. If that were the case, you'd say that's insane. That's crazy. Why would we allow that to happen? This, of course, is why President Trump has been concerned about TikTok, and Congress has been concerned about TikTok. It's not because the people who are in control of TikTok were born in China. That's not the issue. The issue is that the company is in no small part ultimately controlled by people from the Chinese Communist Party. And that's not to say that the Communist Party is, telling them which servers to buy or, how to set their marketing policy. That's not what this is about. But ultimately, they control at the most fundamental level how the technologies are deployed and what the corporate policies are going to be. Those are things that we cannot tolerate in a giant company with direct access to our data and an ability to influence our kids. We just can't put up with it.
Well, we have a tremendous amount of energy here in Fayette County, and since you mentioned data, we're gonna go down that path a little bit. One of the things that they look for is places that the economy's doing bad, the surrounding area, the counties and they try to put these data harvesting centers in, and they power them off of the natural gas that's because they have to run 24/7. They have to be close to the grid, but they also have to power them. And if we got to be careful about this, how we do this, because we can't let the wrong players get involved in this, or we're gonna end up with a mess that we can't fix. I don't know and I know you know what I'm talking about, but it's going to be.
I do.
Go ahead.
You're exactly right. Sourcing energy for future technological needs is one of the major challenges facing our economy, especially, and I think for most of us, this came as quite a surprise a couple of years ago when we were beginning to realize how much energy is required to drive the server farms that support our American future utilization of artificial intelligence. This is why so many big tech companies are looking at the ability to develop their own nuclear power sources. So we need for states and the federal government to deregulate. It doesn't have to be completely, but as you may know and your listeners may know, the regulations surrounding the development of nuclear power are insane. Extremely difficult to launch a new nuclear power facility in this country as compared to other places around the world. In France, they're launching a new power station, probably a new one while you and I are on the show today. That's how quickly they get them up and running. But in the United States, they are extremely few and far between, and we know that as a matter of cost efficiency and ultimately pro-environment, pro-safety, the future is going to be dependent on both fission and fusion, and the development of these technologies is critical. So, good on you for understanding that our access to energy is going to be critical, and your counties should not be bashful about telling a new tech company's investment, hey, we would love you to be in our county. We would love for you to make an investment. We would love for you to come in and employ our people. We want to be welcoming neighbors. But, we've only got so much energy. And if you think that we're going to dedicate half of our energy to your servers and compromise our ability to run the rest of our economy, that's just not going to work out. So we need to find ways for these private organizations to develop their own sources.
And you're exactly right, because technology and harvesting data and putting data, I'm in the recorder's office, so obviously I have a lot of documents that have to be digitized, and I'm kind of really proud about this. I've got all the deed books digitized clear back to 1787. That's book A. Now we just got to.
Wow, that's quite an accomplishment, because as I recall, they didn't have as many computers in 1787 as they do now.
No, they don't. But and you can carry it around in your hand. From 1950 to 1783, because we were part of Westmoreland County until 1783. In fact, we just had our 242nd birthday here in Fayette County on Friday. But
Congratulations.
But you can carry these documents around in your hand, and it took a major thing to happen. I was trying to reduce the bill at a storage company for microfilm, and finally I says, what if we digitize this stuff, and then I don't have to pay to store pallets in this old limestone mine to keep them a certain temperature? And they said, well, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And I said, well, is everybody else doing that? And they said, well, you're still going to have to store it because you have to keep the originals. And I said, I will keep the originals. I said, they're in my office. But I said, the microfilm, we can move to a different facility. And I went from paying $8,000 a year. This is a fact. I went from paying $8,000 a year to paying $40 a month by changing this. And then I digitized everything. So now, in the safe work, I have everything digitized back that far. We just have to get it.
It is absolutely the way that it has to be done, and in the future, not only is it going to reduce your costs, it's going to be better for the environment, and you're going to find that it creates a much more searchable and user-friendly database. It's going to help you with the upload as well. At the end of the day, it's going to help you provide great customer service, and that's half the game right there. So congratulations.
Well, it took some doing, and actually I stumbled upon this by accident because I get a bill for $8,000, and I thought, well, this is insanity. It was $7,200 and $7,247. I mean, I know that's only $7,500 if you round it up, but I thought, and then they tried to bill me for 2 years because they wanted paid ahead. They wanted paid a year ahead of time, and I said, wait a minute.
Well, they don't want you changing your mind.
So what I did was I started negotiating back and forth with them, and finally I got the bill down to like $2,400 for the 1 year, and I said, okay, my solicitor says you're not going to get no further than that. He says I was trying to get it down to $1,600. That was my goal, but we got it down to like $2,400. We paid the bill. We pulled the stuff out of there. We brought it to Fayette County. I bought a dehumidifier. We put it in the basement of one of the buildings until I could, not in the courthouse, but in a separate building, until I could get it get the company to start digitizing it for me. And then once they came and picked it all up, took it all to a facility, and now they store it for me for $40 a month, plus I got it digitized. Anyways, that's another story. But
it's awesome. It's the wave of the future. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, and people don't realize when you start looking at all these things, you have to be. I've learned so much. It's a learning curve because what you did today is outdated 3 days from now. So it's hard to keep up with everything as fast paced as everything is going. But okay.
Well, that's all the more reason why you have to do this, so that as digitizing technologies change, you can change with them. But if you're stuck with microfilm and microfiche and paper, it doesn't matter what kind of technological advancements take place. They won't help you because you're stuck, in the back room with your film. It's insane.
Yep.
Good for you.
But we'll get this done. We'll get this done, and then and hopefully in the next few months we'll be able to get it all taken care of. I do want to ask you some things right now, though, that we can talk about the country a little bit more. Right now, of course, we know right now that President Trump's in a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister.
Yep.
So, how do you feel yourself about how this needs to go? I know they're trying to make Gaza, and this might not. People in Fayette County might not understand this, but this directly affects the United States. And maybe I'll let you go ahead and go on with that.
It does. It's a very complicated issue, and obviously well-meaning folks have, in many cases, very different views on this. And so, as I express my own opinion, I certainly don't mean to suggest that people who might see things a little bit differently are dinglings, right? I think that everyone is trying to work their way through this. Netanyahu himself has been at odds a little bit with President Trump from time to time. Netanyahu has been at odds with his own population, right? Polling data show that a huge proportion of the Israeli voting electorate have been disappointed with the way that the war has been prosecuted, with the way negotiations have been managed. And I think that that's all logical in a sense, or should be expected. If your population is all of the same mind, you got to wonder whether you've asked the question correctly. And I think that with all of the war that has been going on in Gaza, if people aren't upset, well, that's a red flag too. Maybe you've asked the polling question wrong, because no one is in favor of war. No one is in favor of death and destruction. The real issues here are, how do you achieve long-term, lasting security, both for Israel and for the people of Gaza? How do you do it in a way that recognizes the humanity of people who live in this part of the world, who absolutely deserve, whatever side of that dividing line you live on, all of these people deserve the opportunity to live in peace and security, with a certain amount, of course, of self-governance and ability to chart their own future. All of us want all of these things. And in many cases, these have been competing interests, as we know. The people of Gaza have been effectively ruled by Hamas. Hamas is absolutely a terrorist organization, pro-war, very much in favor of wiping Israel off the face of the earth. They do not believe that Israel has a right to exist as such. They do not put any value on Israeli lives, and I would go so far as to argue that Hamas does not sufficiently value the lives of their own constituents, of the Palestinian people. This is a bad organization. I will not compromise on this point. They were at one point democratically elected. That was a long, long time ago, and they have not held elections for many, many 2-year and 4-year cycles. No one should argue that Hamas is a legitimate democratically elected representative of the interests of the Palestinian people. That is not so. It is not true that the Palestinian people, by and large, wanted to have happen what happened on October 6th those years ago. That's just not true. Hamas is an organization that was baiting a war, that wanted a war with Israel, that wants as much death and destruction as possible to eventually create a regional conflict that would undermine the Israeli government's ability to exist and go so far as to undermine the ability of the Israeli nation to exist. This is what that's all been about. And when October 6th initially happened, I argued strong that the Israeli government needs to be very careful not to be dragged in and baited into a full-scale conflict that did not serve their interests in retaliation for what happened. And we all understand, it's completely natural. I mean, heaven knows when the United States has been attacked, I mean, we're talking about, I'll get the numbers wrong, but on the order of 1,200 lives, plus dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hostages. If the American people were attacked in such a way, our retaliation would be massive. There's no question about this. Our response to 9/11 was massive. And I don't think anyone should live under any pretensions or silliness that such a response should not have been expected. Having said that, it has proven extraordinarily difficult to prosecute a war in such a densely populated area and either get the hostages back, eradicate Hamas, or avoid killing a whole lot of Palestinian people. The Palestinians claim that over 66,000 lives have been lost in Gaza. I have no idea whether that number is accurate or not. That's really not the point. The point is that there's been a tremendous amount of death and destruction. And at this point, if you're an Israeli citizen, you've got to be asking, is this really the best way to handle this? Surely after years of this, demonstrating how difficult it is, we need to be thinking outside the box. And, John, I should point out that I personally have strong feelings. I think we all have strong feelings. Many people in America have strong feelings toward Israel and all kinds of feelings. I have traveled Israel a great deal. I've sent my daughter there. I've sent my son there. I've traveled all over. I have traveled Palestinian territory. My son has trained in Jordan. Those of us who grew up in the Christian faith have close cultural ties, spiritual ties to the Holy Land. These things matter, and it does us no good to pretend that that's not the case, that this does not matter, because it does. These things are emotionally highly charged. And I think that it is for us as Americans to say, we have these strong ties, these strong binds, these strong feelings, but the Israeli people and the Israeli government need to have the right to chart their own future and to determine their own foreign policy without it being overly necessarily tied to the United States. That we are allies, we are partners, but that doesn't mean that we should be dictating to each other how each conflict needs to be managed. And I think at the same time, we need to recognize that the Palestinian people, like all people, like everybody on this rock that we call Earth, deserves the ability to chart their own future, that deserves a path forward to self-governance. This is a basic human right in my view. How do we get there? Extremely complex. I think a lot of people were shocked when President Trump's team was able, in his first term, to negotiate the Abraham Accords. A stunning achievement that demonstrated that many Arab nations, governments, populations in the Middle East were willing and able to reach out and work with the Israeli government in a way that they had not been in the past. For this reason, I think that there is reason to be optimistic going forward to achieving a ceasefire and a lasting peace. I think that a lot of people are mad at President Trump. A lot of people don't trust him, don't trust his team. I understand that, right? A huge proportion of the American population just doesn't like Republicans, and I understand that a bunch of other people in the United States just don't like Democrats. But having said that, objectively speaking, President Trump has demonstrated a willingness and a capability to negotiate in this part of the world and achieve things that others have said were virtually impossible.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to have to cut you off right there. And I really appreciate you coming on with me. I want to get you back on again. You're a wealth of knowledge. I want to thank Gene for coming in today and being with me. And like I always close all my shows, on this road called life, you have to take the good with the bad. Smile when you're sad, love what you got, and remember what you had. Always forgive and try to forget. People change. Things go wrong. Just remember, the ride goes on. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless America. I am John Marietta, and I am the Hillbilly.